It's Wulf, and it's a 15 first impressions. This one is about Jabroni Brawl 3. But before I talk about the game, I just want to talk about some stuff quickly about this series of videos in general overall. So for one, the name has changed. These used to be first 15 videos, but I decided to change the name to 15 first impressions because I felt like a lot of people probably didn't know what I meant by first 15, so I felt like adding first impressions in the title would help people understand what the videos actually are before they watch them. Also, previously I had done these types of videos almost exclusively on games that were sent to me for free, so games that I received keys for. However, I think I'm going to start changing that up a little bit and playing also free-to-play games or games that I just bought on my own, because I think it'd be cool to cover some more stuff in this format in general. And also, as I mentioned on Twitter and also in a previous video, I used to mostly use Keymailer to receive keys and request keys and stuff like that for games. However, Keymailer a while ago implemented some weird policies and requirements for requesting keys and accreditation and stuff like that, and so sometimes my account on there can request keys, sometimes it can't. It seems to be random when it lets me, so I think it's more helpful to cover a more wide range of stuff also, because I haven't really received anything to review in a while because of the weird stuff going on with Keymailer. And lastly, apologies in general that the channel has been sort of empty for a while now. I am still in grad school. I have been very busy this previous term. I still have many ideas as always, and I just have not actually had time to execute on a lot of those ideas. So there's still playthroughs I need to edit, there's still video ideas that I have. I'm working on all of it. It's just taken a while because I have so much real life stuff going on. So with that out of the way, on to the actual game of Jabroni Brawl 3. This is one of those games that I don't think actually is officially a game on its own. I think it's technically a source mod, because on the store page it says that it requires Half-Life 2 Episode 2 to play it. However, I don't own Half-Life 2 Episode 2. It's not in my Steam library. I don't remember ever purchasing it. When I just looked at the store page for Half-Life 2 Episode 2, it says I haven't purchased it, and yet Jabroni Brawl 3 still installed fine and I was able to play it fine. It could be possibly one of those things where you just need a source engine game in general to play it, like some other source mods do, because this is a source mod really. But I also don't believe I have any source games installed besides, of all the source games, Postal 3. So that could possibly be why it works even though I don't have Half-Life 2 Episode 2, but it's just an oddity about the actual store page that I wanted to point out. This game reminds me quite a bit of two other games, which are Garry's Mod and Double Action Boogaloo. It reminds me of Double Action Boogaloo in that it is kind of a just silly game overall, and it also does have some of the same aspects of like being able to dive and stuff like that, but Double Action Boogaloo is mostly a third-person game, and Double Action Boogaloo, although goofy, isn't as silly as Jabroni Brawl 3 is. Also, Double Action Boogaloo seems to be, it's really a lot like Stranglehold more than anything else, whereas Jabroni Brawl 3 isn't that much focused on like diving and stuff like that. So there are similarities there, and I've also heard comparisons to The Specialists, which is another game that Double Action Boogaloo also gets compared to a lot. It's another game that's in the Source engine, I believe, and also involves diving and things like that. I believe I heard those comparisons when I first heard about this game, which I initially found out about this game through a Vinny Vinesauce stream where he played it with some of his friends. And speaking of playing this game with other people, I should note the game is sort of dead in terms of multiplayer, but I'll get back to that in a minute because I also wanted to mention Garry's Mod. So this game also reminds me a lot of Garry's Mod because of the silliness of it and the fact that it draws on resources from a lot of other games. In a lot of ways, Jabroni Brawl 3 feels like a Garry's Mod mode that was just turned into its own game, and I mean that in a good way though. But there are just a lot of aspects of this game that remind me of Garry's Mod. For one, as I mentioned earlier, there's all of the shared source asset stuff. So in this gameplay, at least one of the maps that I played on was a Counter-Strike map, and there's various other things from Source games and other games as well that are all combined into this singular game. For example, I was playing as the Postal dude from Postal 2, which is not a Source game, but he still is in this game, and there's various things that are like that. So there's Source stuff, and there's also non-Source stuff that this game is made out of. And overall, that does lead to it being a pretty fun party-style game, because it just has so much varying stuff from random all over the place. And even though some of it kind of doesn't necessarily mesh well, I think that's also sort of the point. So it feels like there's just so many cool things in this game. There's a lot of maps, there's a lot of weapons, there's a lot of characters, and it feels like everything in the game brings its own bit of personality into it, which is really cool. However, actually playing the game with other people can be a little bit of an issue because the servers are pretty much empty so far as I've seen. When I initially had seen Vinny Vinesauce stream this game, I downloaded it like a couple of days later, and it was pretty active then, which makes sense because a major Twitch streamer / YouTuber covered it, and I think some other people also played it around that time. And so it had some popularity going for it. However, I'm playing this now a couple of months later, and it hasn't really gotten sustained coverage or anything, and the fan base seems to not even exist. Luckily, this game does have bot mode, so you can play against bots, which is what I'm doing in this gameplay, and although playing against bots is never quite as perfect as playing against other people, it does work pretty alright. In this gameplay, I played against a whole ton of bots, so it kind of made it really chaotic, just like the real game normally is. And to be honest, I think I actually would prefer playing this game with bots in some ways, because back a couple of months ago when I played this and there were other players, it felt like a lot of people were just being kind of annoying. And I feel like that's a pretty common complaint amongst a lot of sort of obscure multiplayer games, is that sometimes the communities just have a lot of, like, frankly annoying people. And I'm not trying to say that in a negative thing, but it's just something I consistently encountered back when I played the game a couple months ago and there were a lot of people in it. There were a lot of people just being stupid and saying offensive things and trying way too hard to be funny for a lobby of people on a Source game. Nonetheless, though, it is kind of a shame that this game doesn't really have as much of a consistent fan base as something like Double Action Boogaloo used to, because this game is pretty fun and I think that it would be cool to play with other players. This is a first-person shooter, so I should talk about the weapons. So the way that most of the game modes that I've seen in this game work, the gameplay in this video is of team deathmatch and gun game. It seems like you don't ever actually choose your own weapon or class, which I kind of like because the game has a very silly variety of weapons. Almost none of the weapons in this game are normal, and so the fact that you just kind of get a random weapon whenever you respawn is something that I like quite a bit. And then in gun game, you go through I think all of the weapons, and so you get to try out all of the silly weapons that the game has to offer. So there's a bunch in this game. I mean, there are some more traditional things like pistols and shotguns, but almost all of them have some sort of silly alt fire at the least. There's like a shotgun that's kind of like a Spas 12 looking thing, and when you right click and you alt fire, it fires bouncing bullets and it takes up 3 shots. There's a machine pistol that when you alt fire, your character holds it sideways, and when they reload in that, they like drop it and then grab another one. On the sillier side of weapons, there's stuff like a watermelon launcher that's a blunderbuss that shoots watermelons. There's a scientist shotgun that shoots out scientists from Half-Life, and there's a crowbar that like throws rockets. There's a scoped knife. So there's a lot of really silly weapons. I don't really have time to talk about like every single one in the game, but if you want to check the game out, it's honestly worth doing so just to see the weapons because they're all really kind of interesting. The game also does have quite a few game modes, but the only ones I've really played are just team deathmatch, and gun game. Back when I was able to play this a little bit with some other people a couple months ago, I did get into some lobbies for some of the other game modes, but I don't think they really felt like they worked as well as just normal fighting modes because some of them required strategy and stuff, and that just doesn't usually work with a public lobby of other players. So I think that a lot of the other game modes are kind of another sort of similarity thing with Garry's Mod. A lot of them are stuff you could also play in Garry's Mod in some form, and it's cool that they're there, but I don't really know how popular they are all these years later in general, even in Garry's Mod where a bunch of them originated or in other games where they originated. So I don't really know what the point was in including them in Jabroni Brawl 3. It's always good to have more content, but I just don't know if anybody actually plays them or played them. And then in terms of maps, a lot of the maps are borrowed from other places. So in this gameplay, I played on that one Counter-Strike map that's in Italy, I believe, and it was the same layout layout and everything, so it was familiar, but it was fun to play it in a new way because obviously Jabroni Brawl 3 is a lot more fast-paced than Counter-Strike is. When I was playing this outside of recording the video the one time, I was in a level that was that Counter-Strike office block, and that also same exact layout and everything, so it was familiar but interesting to play it in a new way. There also are a couple of original maps, I believe. I don't know what like the ratio is of original maps to maps that are from other places, but it is cool to have that balance there. Although I will say, I think a couple of the maps in this game are very bad. I think it could be one of those things where some maps were maybe designed with certain game modes in mind and just don't work for other game modes, but I know in particular, there's this one very vertical map that I tried playing Team Deathmatch on in a lobby with other people, and it was one of the worst games of Team Deathmatch that I think I've ever played because the silly weapons of Jabroni Brawl 3 don't necessarily work that well for verticality. It feels like the game wants close quarters combat for a lot of its weapons, and a really vertical map like that just did not work for Team Deathmatch mode in this game. Anyway though, I think that is just about it for everything that there is in terms of my first impressions of Jabroni Brawl 3. This is a good concept for a game. I always appreciate seeing a new source mod that's like this, and it's been a while since I think there's been a sort of popular source mod like this. It sucks that the community kind of died out and that some aspects of the game aren't as polished as I think they could be, but there's also a lot of really unique stuff in this game. It pulls on a lot of different inspirations and resources, and it just manages to mesh into something that feels familiar but also feels very unique and unlike anything I've really played in a long time. So I would suggest checking it out. Again, it is free, even though it says that it requires Half-Life 2 Episode 2. It doesn't seem to actually require it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in future stuff, and bye-bye.
Can anyone hear me?
Hit the melon.
There's nothing like
Hitting the melon.
That's gonna be sore tomorrow. Reload fury. Reload fury. There's nothing like a long silver bullet slipping into a well-greased chamber.
Raymond, you fool!
Hitting the melon.
There's nothing like a long, silver bullet slipping into a well-greased chamber. I love to my spleens poking out. I love to reload during reload. Fuck you. Fuck off. Damn, that stings. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you, buddy. Fuck you. Fuck. There's nothing like a long. So that's what it feels like. You go, girl.
I need help! Everybody's gone!
That stings.
Orgy of